Good morning, good afternoon and good evening. It's Lee from Magnetic North Adventures. Hope you're all well today, and I'm not going on a walk or a search or anything. I'm just going to sit here in nature, out here, enjoy that. And I'm going to tell you about metal detecting sites and research and places that you might want to have a look if you're going to start treasure hunting with a metal detector. So there's quite a lot of sites to think about when you're out and about or trying to gain permission. And in a future video I will also be doing about how to gain permission and letters, things that you'd need to do that. So a lot of this is going to apply to the United Kingdom, but some of this information can be used in Europe, worldwide, and USA, Canada, Australia, places like that. So where do you start when you want to go treasure hunting? Well, first you need to do a lot of research. The first thing you need to do is research maps and the internet for landowners, estate owners, or people that own property. That's where you're going to get your permissions from. And if you want to do a bit of research onto the land itself, you need to look for a few key features that's going to help you find items. So in the United Kingdom, if you see on a map the word gibbet, that is an old hangman's site, and that is also where crime was actually displayed to the public pre-1800. Now a lot of famous people was put in gibbets, which was actually a steel cage, and they would be left there for the public to see to deter from doing other crimes as well. It were very gruesome, but they'd be left there until the bones actually fell through the cage, and it wasn't a good way to go, but it certainly set a message. So if you look for gibbet or gibbet hill, that's Hangman's Hill. That would always be a good place to search for items. People used to pay to go and see such a event, and in some cases, if the people were very famous, you could have up to 4,000 or 5,000 people attending the smaller areas. Many more in cities and areas like London, just because of who the people were and what they'd done. So notorious highwaymen, they would draw a lot of crowds. They'd all have to pay to get in to see the event. There would be stalls with food and drink on sale, and there'd be a lot of general losses around that particular event. Coins, tokens, buttons, things like that. Also, when you look on a map, if you see it says pond, decoy, or pond farm, that would be a good place to search, because that pond could date back as much as 600, 700, 800 years. And it could be the site of a monastic pond which kept fish for the church and visiting dignitaries. Some of those ponds will have been filled in, and they would be good places to search for refuge tips, middens, general areas where things are being buried. You've also got green lanes. Now a green lane was a parcel of land between two boundaries, generally fields, and one person would own the land on the left, one person on the right. And to distinguish whose land was whose, they basically only ploughed a certain distance. So when the horses turned, it created a green lane. which was basically a natural muddy track as a boundary. And over time people would use that boundary as a walkway or to take the horses to take goods into towns and villages. They then later became trackways with established beds and strong footholds, and then they later became roads. Many of those can date back to the Roman period, some into prehistoric times, and also certainly into the medieval period where the packhorse routes were. Another feature to look for is the word pinfold. And a pinfold is an area where you'd actually keep your cattle and stray animals that got lost. And for a fee, you'd pay that person who owned the pinfold to get your cattle back. They are often in medieval areas from the 11 to 1400s, and again they were used up until about 1750, and they are always good places if they're on pasture land, because your animals carried bells and things like that to alert people where they were, and you might even get tools in such places. There is a word you will see on a map called lowe, L-O-W-E. Now, when you see such a word, that often refers to a prehistoric burial mound or a cairn, and that is simply a hole dug into the floor or the ground and stones put on top and mud on top of that, and then more stones and more mud with a burial inside. Now those can't actually be searched, but it does lead to research as to who might be on the land for field walking finds, such as flints, prehistoric tools, and even later offerings from the Romans when they visited such sites. If you see the word Castle Hill, that's a good one. That always refers to a Norman or medieval castle site, anything from 1068 through to about 1600s, and it means that somewhere in that area there will be the remains of a castle, a fortified manor, or simply a defensive site. Now, if you look at the Castle Hill and there is no evidence of medieval structure, it can also refer to a Iron Age or Roman period fort. So cross sites, basically they are old boundary markers, and they were to establish a parish boundary, and they are always medieval in Tudor, so again 1100 to 1600 in date. They will lead to finds because people used to gather at them as meeting places. So another place to look for on maps is a place called Ferry Crossing or Ferry Point, and this would be where you've got a water source that needed to be accessed, and that would be simply a man or a woman in a boat that would take you across the waterway safely on a rope tied to the other side, and they would literally pull you across the river for a fee, and then if you wanted to go back you had to pay a fee again. Now such waterways where you're going to get tidal waters, they're always going to produce finds where people have had mishaps and fallen into the water or got off too soon. If you see the word Toot Hill, that is basically a site where there used to be beacons. So in times of danger you'd actually have beacons lit to say that there was an approaching army or a navy if you're on the coast, and it gave other settlements warning that there was somebody approaching. And such sites as those will always have finds of coins, buttons. You get things from food waste, so you'll get knives, forks, spoons, things like that as well. Tokens, gaming tokens. Now other areas in the more modern that would apply worldwide would be telephone boxes. Now before the mobile phones was invented, people always used to congregate and meet at telephone boxes for whatever reason they were meeting, and then they'd call people to arrange to meet up and go out to town or to the city or to an event. So if you've got a bit of grassland around a phone box, a telephone box, again, excellent places to find coins and occasionally wallets, watches and jewellery. Same with post boxes, they are always worth a look at, again for the same reasons. People used to congregate around those, meet up and just discuss general things that were happening in the day. If you look on maps for where old shops used to be and buildings, if that area is now public ground, where it is grass, wasteland or pasture, always try and seek permission for those places. You're going to get any number of fines from animal tags, dog tags, cat tags, things like that. You're going to get tokens, you're going to get bag seals for the old flour bags, and you're going to get a lot of coins in such a place as well. And you always go get the general trash. You get that on most sites. Trees on their own in a field. So labourers working the land, they would always need somewhere to have a rest. And they also gathered at a tree in the middle of a field simply to have that rest, have a lunch break, and to provide shelter from the elements of heavy rain, wind and snow. Now I have actually found a lot of things near trees, and within 10 metres of the tree you always find something. Old or modern, it's always interesting, so they're always worth a look as well. Let's have a think. If you ever look for old field names, most maps will actually tell you if they're old parish maps and parish records from the church. They will tell you field names and field sizes. Now if the size of a field is small, that could well be that it belonged to lots of different people who rented the land, and you all had a parcel of land, basically like an allotment where you'd grow vegetables on. And they're always going to be good areas as well for various types of finds. Now they can also tell you what might have been happening in the land. So if you get something called Chapel Field, it's highly likely that there was a chapel building in that field. And if there wasn't a chapel, there was an open preacher's site where the local parish vicar would actually go, and they'd do an open air sermon. Again, that's going to attract a lot of people at the time, and a lot of money was exchanged from people paying for sins, prayers and things like that. Also, if you look for old stone mileposts, you do get those a lot in the United Kingdom and some in Europe, sometimes metal ones. Now those are also known as stoop stones, and basically it could just be a stone where people have gone to go and check the area that they're in, the distance of where they're going to another area. Now back in the day when people could not read, they were always good places for people to meet up. Often they could count, but they couldn't read. So they would say, I will meet you at stone number 5, and set to meet out at that time. Now people obviously had issues along the way, highwaymen, robberies, things like that. So some of these stones could also be used for hiding treasure, coins, jewellery, things like that, in areas that they were unsure of, to return back to when a sale had been completed. So some other sites that you might want to consider are places called running fields. That's exactly where people used to meet up and do horse gallops and training of horses and gambling, things like that. You always could get fines on those. Horse furniture, horse decorations, tokens, coins, even medals on some of the sites. Where else do you need to look at? Old market sites, anywhere that's been listed where a market has been held, however old, they're always going to provide fines. You get them in fields, pasture land, sometimes in woodland where the wood has been replanted over as well. Look at fairground sites, carnival sites. They're always going to provide a vast number of fines from various ages. Also look for the crossroads on a map. Any crossroad would have been an area that would have been a known meeting point, and guides from other towns and villages would have guided people through the area, and they would often be paid for that service of safety. Look at mill sites, where mills used to be, water wheels, things like that. They're always going to be interesting. They can go back hundreds and hundreds of years. Go and have a look at forest clearings and woodland clearings. If there's an area that's been cleared, it's very likely that somebody's inhabited that area and they've turned the soil over to actually have crops or to make food or do some sort of industrial activity. Old industrial sites as well, always worth a look at if you've got water at the side. Look for those areas where you've got your black sands. They're going to provide lots of fines. When you come onto the water sources, you want to be looking for creeks on tidal rivers. They're going to provide lots of fines. You want to look for wharfs and small docking areas. Again, they're going to have fines, and people magnet fish, metal detect and mudlock those areas. So there's high chance of finding anything really, very old to modern. When you have a look at aerial photographs as well, also look for features that are no longer there. So look for bridges that used to cross rivers, streams, creeks and becks. Look for buildings that's disappeared and are now open land. If you have a look for areas on the aerial photos where historical monuments are, battlefields, places like that, it will actually lead to other areas nearby where there might actually be sites that you could search. Have a look for old routeways, tracks and roads that lead to apparently nowhere. They would have gone somewhere at some point, and therefore they are worth investigating and following, just so you can see what might have been in the area, and that could lead to an old settlement, a house, a building, even an old market area or an industrial area. And that road, if it still exists, even disused, would be worth searching along the side of as well. Now, if you are lucky enough to come across wells, again, it's a water source, it was a meeting place, and there would be a lot of people congregating around that area. If you can get permission to search the well, magnet fish those, you'll get fines out of those. If the well has been filled in, it's likely it's a privy tip, and that's a dump where all household waste was dumped to fill the hole in. That's going to contain bottles, pottery, all manner of losses from a home. And around those sites, if they're demolished, they also contain coins and tokens as well. Also look on maps for places of ruins. Now a lot of those will not be able to be searched depending where you are in the world, but they are always worth a check to see how old they are and how long people's been working the land in the area. Also battlefields, most you can't get permissions for, but you will be able to at least see where possible escape routes and routes where finds could have been dumped along the way in an advance or a retreat mode as well. Also you want to be having a look at disused railways. They're always going to go to sites, industrial features, railway buildings, and again they were popular meeting places and they would have attracted a lot of attention. So old railway stations, platforms, places like that, if they're abandoned, they may well contain finds. Even with the tracks uprooted, there could still be finds in the area. Parks as well, they are always worth a look at. People have always gathered around parks for social gatherings and just to chill out and relax. So those are all places that would be well worth a look at. And when you go into a field, if you see pottery or glass, stone tools like the flint arrowheads, you know you're onto a field that's going to produce lots of things. If you see man-made lead in a field, that also shows that there's been a lot of working and activity in that field. So keep trying, keep going, and do as much research as you possibly can. Now, when you contact a farmer or a landowner, always be courteous and polite, and always make sure to assure them that no damages will be done to their property, and always offer to share finds, and that often gains you permissions. So I hope that's been of interest to you all, and that's all I've got for now. So on the next one, very soon, I'll be doing about how to get the land permissions. So yeah, that's it for me. Don't forget to like, subscribe and comment. I always like to know what you think of the videos and how they were. Also, if you want to comment where you're from, again, it's always nice to know where people have come from. And on the next adventure, I will be out doing the permissions finding research for you, and that will be in depth as well, showing letters, things like that, that you could potentially write to gain permission. So until the next one, that's it for me. Bye for now everyone, see ya, bye.